Hey, it's Rich, the Louisiana Hobby Guy. You know, I've gotten a lot of questions in the last year or so about rotaries, and especially lately with the RA2 from X-Tool that came out, how to do double-sided tumblers, or, you know, tumblers that have graphics in different positions around the tumbler. Well, it's really simple to do, and I got an email last week from one of my patrons, Jeff Camphora, and he had a special project that he needed done, double-sided, and he couldn't find any information on how to get it done with the RA2. So today we're going to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's the same with any roller. It doesn't matter what it is, but I'll show you on the RA2, and I'll show you on a regular roller how they come out. And I will show you exactly how to do this in Lightburn to set up your template so that you get a perfect alignment every time. So let's jump over into Lightburn and get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is, let me bring in this tumbler and how we're going to use it. Let's pretend that this is the tumbler that you're going to use right here. And it could be any tumbler, it doesn't matter what it is. The first thing we need to determine is how big is the graphic. So let's say that we have a graphic that is 2 inches by 2 inches. So let's come up here. Let's put this into inches, unlock it, and we're just going to say 2, press tab, 2, press enter, and relock it again. Well, we don't even need to relock it, doesn't matter. So this is our actual graphic, okay, 2 inches by 2 inches. And this is our tumbler over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly trace this tumbler. And there we go. So there's our tumbler. Now let's say that this tumbler is 7 inches from top to bottom. Quickly, what I'm going to do is clean up some of this stuff up on the top so that we have an accurate representation here. All right, so we're going to come over here and we're just going to do the height. So the height we know is 7 inches from top to bottom. So I just did 7 and pressed enter, and of course it was locked. So now it's proportionately sized. So now we know from the top of the anodized part to the bottom is 7 inches, and this is a pretty good representation of our 2-inch graphic that we're going to put on there. That's about how it's going to look. So at this point we have to determine where on the tumbler we need to take our measurement from. So if the graphic is going to be right here on the tumbler, then we need to take our measurement right here, across here, for our diameter, excuse me. So the diameter measurement is right here. Now if we were to take and put this graphic down here, let's say somewhere in the middle of that tumbler, and in fact we can absolutely put it in the middle, just like that. It's directly in the center now. Now we know that we have to take our measurement right here. And the reason for that is the focal distance is going to be different here than it is from here. So we're going to take a mean average, which is going to be right here. This is where we would take our caliper and make our measurement for the diameter of this cup. Does that make sense? So now what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the rotary icon. And if you don't see the icon, yours may be up here, could be, you know, anywhere on your workspace here. You can come into Laser Tools and go down to Rotary Setup right here. So now on your RA2, if you have the X tool, and you have it's going to be the chuck or the roller. So let's say we're going to use the chuck on this one. We're going to click Enable Rotary, and we're going to come over here. And we're going to take our diameter measurement over here. Okay, so let's say we measured this and the diameter was, for argument's sake, 65 millimeters. Okay, actually let me put this into millimeters first, because that's what I like working with, is millimeters. So we'll bring this back up, and let's say our object diameter now, the measurement that we took right here across the center was, let's say it was 60 millimeters. Now we have, it automatically calculates our circumference down here. And let's not forget that we have to turn on the Enable Rotary, and with the RA2, it needs to be the A axis. Now if you have another roller, and you might have to use the y-axis. If you're unplugging the y-axis and plugging it into your roller, that's the one you'd select. On the RA2 you would select the A-axis because it has a separate port. So now we put our 60 millimeters in here, which is our diameter at the center, and we got this number right here, 188.496 as our circumference. Let's go ahead and copy that. We'll right click on it and copy it, and we'll say OK. Now what we're going to do is take and draw a toolpath. Just like that, we're going to select it, unlock it, and in the width, we're going to paste that number that we just copied for the circumference. And we're going to press enter. Now what this is our workspace. From here to here, think of this as a piece of tape. If you were going to take this and it was a piece of tape, and you were going to start right here, and go all the way around the cup, and it would meet up in the same exact spot. That is our circumference. Now we need to determine how high the graphic is. So we know that this graphic is 2 inches, or 2 inches by 2 inches, I believe. Yep. So it's 50.8 millimeters high. So now we'll select this one. We'll come to the height, and we'll put in 50.8 and press enter. Now we have our exact workspace. If we were to bring this over here, it's exactly the size of our graphic, and it will wrap all the way around the cup. Now let's take a logo, any logo, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to use mine. And now again, these are just toolpaths over here. This was just to describe to you how to get started doing this. Okay, so we're going to get rid of at least one of those. Actually, we get rid of both of those. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to determine where do I want this graphic. Do I want it directly in the center? Well, if that's the case, then I can just select this graphic and then press and hold down Shift, select this graphic, and come up to the top and hit the bullseye. And there we go. It's directly in the center. Now all I would need to do is size it to fit the area that I want it to. If I hold Control, it will size proportionately from the center out. There is my graphic right there. It's perfectly centered and it's ready to go. But a lot of people say, but wait a minute, because I want to put 2 of these graphics on here. And that's really simple to do. All we need to do is split this up into 4 pieces. So what I'm going to do is select the rectangle here. I'm going to press Control and the letter D, which duplicates it. Now once it's duplicated, it's automatically selected. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out a calculator. Now if I look up in here, I know it's 188.496. You see the number right there? So if I come over here, 188.496, and then I do divided by 4 equals 47.124. All we have to do is divide that number by 4. And I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to copy that number. And over here, in the width, I'm going to paste this into the width and press enter. Now I have 1/4. So now what I'm going to do is press Control and the letter D again to duplicate it. It's already selected. Once I've duplicated it, I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to grab the outer one and I'm going to align it to the right side, just like that, by using my align key right here. Now we've got, actually we've only got 3 different ones here, but that's all we need is 3. So this and this are our alignment points. So now I can come to my graphic and I can take my graphic and bring it right straight up here. And if I zoom in, you'll see that you have your little boxes right here, the handles. So I'm going to use the handles to align everything. Now I'm going to look at this handle and align it to that line. I'm going to look at this handle, or maybe align it to that line. Well, I'll use probably just the top and bottom. I'm going to hold Control, and with my arrow keys, I'm going to move it up slightly. Now in the middle, I'm going to move it over slightly. So now you see it's exactly the same distance from the box up here as it is down here, and it's right exactly on the center of that line there. And now I can hit Control and the letter D one more time to duplicate again. Slide this over to here, get it aligned in the center, and there we have a double-sided tumbler. Now this is just our toolpath. That's all that is our toolpath. That will not output, as you can see here. There's no output. All it will do is frame, and we don't even need it to do that, so we can even turn off the framing. So if we come over here now, the distance between here, going this way, around, and back into here is exactly the same as the distance from here to here. So what that means is that if we were to wrap this all the way around the tumbler, these two would be perfectly centered on opposite sides. So there you go. That's just how easy it is. Now I just noticed something. I've got a cut in here. Oh, my logo's got a cutout on it, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one. There we go. The only thing we should have here is engrave and the toolpath, and that's it. Now, you don't even need the toolpath anymore at this point, but you know, you can go ahead and delete these two and save the file if you have a bunch of these different mugs that are, or these tumblers that are all the same size. But this job right now is ready to run. Now this whole video is dedicated to the double-sided tumbler, okay? So the next question is, let's say I have a tumbler, and down here on the bottom it says Igloo on it, and it's, you know, this is very common that you're going to have some kind of brand name that's going to wind up being right there in the middle, and you need to know, how do I align these two so that one of them comes directly over the name that's down here on the bottom. That's also easy to do. If we come to the laser tab, what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to the start from, and we're going to check on user origin top center. At this point, what you do is, where it says Igloo right here, you're going to turn your tumbler until the center line is directly over the center of the word Igloo. And what you can do is slide the gantry back and forth to make sure that you hit the exact center of that word Igloo. And because you're in user origin top center, what's going to happen is it's going to start top center right here, directly above the word Igloo. I know that one's kind of hard to understand. Wherever you place the tumbler is where this graphic is going to start working, and you want it to start in this top center, okay? Wherever you place the tumbler, and as long as that laser guidance line is right here coming through the Igloo, like I said, just take your gantry and slide it back and forth, slide it right over the word Igloo, get the cup turned right to the direct center of the word Igloo, then slide it all the way back to the left, and it'll be ready to run, and your graphic will start right directly over that center word Igloo. And there's a lot of people that have this problem that cannot burn a double-sided tumbler. A lot of people just burn them one side at a time, and that, you know, this whole video is a waste if that's all you're looking to do, because if you're looking to just, you know, burn it one side, you don't need any of this. All you need to do is design your graphic, size it, come over here to current position or user origin, line it up, and hit start. This video was dedicated to the double-sided tumbler, and that's how easy this is to set up. There it is. That's everything. You've got how to set your graphics up, how to set your position up, and you're ready to run your actual tumbler. So I'm going to go run a couple of these off, and I'll be right back. There are a couple tips that I wanted to throw in here real quick, not to make this video any longer, but because I think they're important. So I've got my wife's design set up here, and I've got my template set up, and what I'm going to do is come up here, and I'm going to go to device settings, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my white space scan to 50 millimeters per minute. Yeah, that's really slow. That's what I want. I want it to be really slow. Okay, so I'm going to say okay to that. And then I'm going to double click on the layer, and I've already done this, but I just wanted to show you what I've done. I've put in here fill shapes individually down here at the bottom, okay? And the reason why I did this, and I put it at, this should be 308 DPI, fill shapes individually. I'm going to go 800 millimeters per minute, max power of 75. This is a 5-watt diode. So I'm going to say OK, and let me show you the reason why I did this. So if we come back to the beginning and I hit play, what's happening here is that the laser is going to move the least amount of movements. Let me turn on show traversal moves here. So, and really what I don't want is it going left and right like that between both graphics, because I'm going to use a regular standard roller with this one. So I want the least amount of left and right that's possible. And you could even argue that you should change this from a scan angle of 0 to a scan angle of 90, and then do a preview again and watch what happens here. Now that took just a little bit of time off of it, but you'll see that there'll be less left to right rotation, where that tumbler is going to be spinning back and forth and actually walking down that roller. Now you don't have that problem, you know, with the RA2, because it's not going to walk anywhere. It's held in there by jaws. But you do have the problem with a regular roller, and this is probably one of the biggest reasons why people don't get good even burns on their rollers, is because it's doing too much spinning back and forth. And when you do all that spinning back and forth like this, then the tumbler is going to walk down the roller. It may only be, you know, 2, 3, or 4 millimeters. You might have it perfectly level, but that 2, 3, or 4 millimeters from here to here is going to make a big difference, and it's not going to come out right. So that's just a couple more settings that I wanted to touch on briefly before we actually get into the burn itself. And then finally, the very last thing is come over to the Move tab right here, and this is one of the biggest problems that people have right here: speed. Some of you are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. When you go to start the burn and do the frame, the tumbler spins off the roller and actually jumps completely off the roller. Well, this is your problem right here, your speed. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to lower this down to 50 millimeters per minute, and that is the number that we're going to use. So it's going to be a real slow framing process. That's okay. Hey, I want it to be really slow because I don't want the tumbler to move on those rollers. If this speed is too high right here, what's going to happen is it's either going to walk left or right, or it's going to spin right off the roller accessory itself. So lower your speed down 50 to 100 and take that extra minute to do the framing, where the tumbler's not going to move and you're not going to have any problems. Now we can go over and get that burn started and finally wrap all this up. All right, so the setup part is also very important, and I've gotten the Diwali roller out, and I have found the center of the tumbler, and I've also made sure that the Diwali is square to the frame. So that's very important. Square to the frame, laser head, laser beam has to hit dead center, and I'm all set to go. Now, I did shim this up because I put my level on here to get it to dead center, and now that's perfectly level at the center. So what I did was I shimmed up the right side to make it level, and the reason I do that rather than keeping the whole accessory level is because the tumbler is going to walk no matter how level you have it. As a matter of fact, if I can zoom in here, you'll see that I've used their champagne cup holder right here on the inside of the cup. So now that cup cannot move left, and I've got it just slightly higher on the right side so that if it's going to walk left. But now I know for certain that it's not going to walk left because I've got that on the inside and it's hitting up against the metal. So that I think is very important. I don't always use that. I used to use just a block of 4x4 wood, that I put right there on the end and tip the right side up just a little bit, so that when it walks, and these will always walk in one direction or the other, so I always tilt the right side up just a little bit. I level from the right side and make sure that it's coming up, and then I put a block of wood on the other side. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire the laser at 1% on the move tab, and I'm going to take this and slide it over to about where I think is the center, somewhere in the center like that. And then I'm going to take my tape measure. I'm going to find out where 100 millimeters is, and that's certainly not it. So I'm going to move it over a little bit more, and just a little bit more, and just a hair more. That is exactly 100 millimeters right there. So now that's my start from position, 100 millimeters. So now I know that my graphics are going to come out in the right spot, and we're going to go ahead and click start and get this burn going. Alright, so here we go with the actual burn itself, and you see it started directly at the center, and now it's running around the bottom. This rose gold is kind of hard to see, but I want you to notice that it's not going side to side, and that's the most important thing here, is that we've stopped that side to side movement. Now it's finished. I'm going to pull it out from underneath those wheels over there. Let me slide this out of the way. I'm going to pick this up, and here is our finished product. And what I'm going to do is take some isopropyl alcohol and just clean it up a little bit like that. And I know with these lights in here, this is almost impossible to see on the rose gold, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep cleaning it. And maybe I should turn out the lights. Let me clean off this side real quick. And that's about it. So let me turn off the lights and see if we can get a better picture of this on the camera. Well, that didn't work. Well, maybe I can shade this a little bit. This looks really wonderful in real life. This rose gold with these lights overhead is, let me see, maybe if I can dim that a little bit, is really beautiful. Comes out really, really nice in person. It's kind of hard to see on the video or with the camera, but the purpose of this video was to show you that here's one side, and if we spin it all the way around, there's the other side, and there's her name with the little rose on top going around. And we spin it around again, you can see that they're perfectly lined up on here. And on the bottom, you can see here it says all the way around, custom made by the Louisiana Hobby Guy, all the way around the bottom. Now, if you had a keen eye, when I first started this, you'll notice that I didn't frame it at all. Okay, and the reason I didn't frame it, I wish I could get a better picture of this. Darn it, these look so really beautiful in person, the rose gold. But it just doesn't come out good on camera. The reason I didn't frame it was because a lot of these diode lasers, they run crazy when you try and frame it. They'll run back and forth 2 or 3 times, whatever. So I didn't have to frame it because I had it positioned right, current position, top center. I knew it would start exactly right there, and I knew that my framing tool, my tool path, would make sure that it was in the right position. So there's no need to frame. So there you go, that's it. Start to finish on the diode laser. I wish I could get a better picture. I'm going to try and take a photograph of it in some kind of normal light, but it looks really outstanding in person. Alright, so next up is the RA2 by X-Tool, and I've got this in the chuck rotary, and I've got a black tumbler so that you can see it a little better than the last one. And I'm not getting into the settings on this just because this video was all about double-sided tumblers. So here's a double-sided tumbler for you. All right, well, let's get it off of here and see what we got. Now well, that didn't come out great, but I guess that's because of the laser. There's one side, there's the other. Let's see what we get. Here is dead center of this one. Here is dead center of this one. That looks pretty good to me. So we got one there, and we've got one there. Let's see what happens if I clean it up a little bit. So I'm just gonna take some alcohol and rub over it real quick, because it never looks good when they first come off. You know that already. And okay, well, how does that look? That looks pretty nice. Well, let's check out the other side. I know a lot of people use other things, you know, like those pads, but I just use a little bit of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and that's all I use. And I think that looks pretty darn good, just the way it is. You can't really see how good this looks on camera, but I just wish I could show you in real life that this came out really nice. So there we go. It's a little bit oblong because I don't have the RA2 settings just perfect, but you know, I can fix that. I think it did a pretty good job. Two-sided, it's perfectly lined up. Here, let me do it this way instead. So let's see, there is one side, there is the other. So again, center here, let me look on this side, center right there, and that is perfectly lined up on both sides. Okay, that takes care of that one. All right, well, I had about 24 of these backed up that I needed to get done, so I figured I would share them with you, let you show them how some of them turned out. I'm not going to show you all 24 of them, but this one here, that is a Hollywood font. That's not off-centered. It's supposed to be like that. And being that I had the template already set up and I knew I had some of these waiting to be done, I figured I would go ahead and just get these done and show you the results on it. Now, there is something else that you can do here too. You can offer these in either silver or gold engraving. So, or I should say, it's not really engraving, you know, gold, silver or gold color. If you raise your power all the way up to 100% and slow the speed way down, you can get a nice gold color out of this. It's like an annealing process. On the stainless, it turns gold if you have a lot of power. So here, I still couldn't get this one to photograph at all, no matter what I did. And even in person, you know, it's sort of hard to see, but it looks beautiful. I love the rose gold. I think maybe next time I'll do another one with some sort of accelerant. I might use some tempera paint on this or something like that. When you don't have the powder coating, you can get different colors. So maybe instead of just engraving off that gold color or the rose gold color, next time I'll just use some sort of accelerant. This one here is very important. That seam that runs down the inside, these were $6 mugs. So you got to be careful on these $6 mugs, because I noticed that the first one I ruined because that seam is also on the outside. The outside wasn't polished down like it's supposed to be. So on the more expensive tumblers, I've never had this problem before, but on these particular ones that I got from Michael's, which were $6 a piece, you know, they're a cheaper version, and I guess they didn't take the time to you know, sand down the outside to make it perfectly smooth. And like I said, I've never had that problem before. This is the first time. But that seam was also on the outside, So you got to make sure that you line it up where that seam does not line up with your graphic, just in case. You know, you don't want to waste anything. All right, so let's visit for a while and talk about what went on in this video. Now, I didn't get into the setup because this video was dedicated more to doing a double-sided tumbler. And the reason I didn't get into the setup is because there are just so many problems that are different. Since the Gerbil 1.1F update, it seems to be running a lot smoother, where I can just grab a graphic, drop it on the screen, you know, frame it and burn it if I'm just doing one side. So that doesn't seem to be a problem at all. But the setups is always a problem, no matter what I do. I can switch from this computer over here to that computer in the back and drop a roller on and have different steps per rotation, which I really can't figure that out. So I don't know why that is. It should be exactly the same, but it's not. On the regular roller, the Diwali roller, I was at 60 millimeters per rotation in my rotary setup. And you know, you also have to measure the actual roller itself, the diameter of the roller, and put that in, because you're on the y-axis. And on the X tool, it did not work at the 128 millimeters per rotation as they suggested in their manual. I wound up having to use 360 millimeters per rotation, and it probably should have been 359 because I was just 2 millimeters off on the height. So you know, it does take some fine-tuning on your millimeters per rotation. It's very simple to set that up. All you need to do is make a template, one rectangle, a long rectangle, a millimeter or two wide, the exact circumference of the object that you're working with. So I usually do that with some wooden rollers, and on those wooden dowels, I should say wooden dowels, on those wooden dowels, you know, I measure the diameter, I put it in, and then I create a box that's the size of the circumference, and then I run the job at a relatively low power and see how that box comes out, and then measure the distance. If they don't meet up, you know, I change it. If they go too far, I change it till I get the right number for the millimeters per rotation. And once I get that number, then you know, it's good to use on anything. And I find that using a wooden dowel is the best way to do it. It's the most affordable way to do it. You don't waste any material if you're using a tumbler or, you know, something like that. So that setup, I do have an entire setup video that I'll put a link to at the end of this video. I'll put one of the graphics up at the end where you can go and look at that setup if you need to. But this video is all about the double-sided tumbler. So I think we've addressed the biggest problems, and the biggest problems that I hear about, and trust me, I get hundreds of emails about, I've had hundreds of emails literally about these things in the last year, is going to be it's going to be your cup spinning off the roller because your speed was too high on the move tab. It's going to be not being able to line it up with the logo that's on the tumbler. You know, all of these things that I discussed, I tried to make sure that I put all of these things into this video. So with that said, I tried to touch base on everything that I could from all of the emails that I got, and make sure that you have a full tutorial on that double-sided tumbler in this video. And I hope that I've addressed all of those things. Now, if you have any questions, you know, a lot of people, after every one of these tutorials, a lot of people send me a ton of questions. You just wouldn't believe it. And almost all of those questions are answered in the video. So if you have any questions, I suggest that you rewatch it from the beginning, because I throw in a lot of tips and tricks that maybe you've skipped over that part. You know, a lot of people, they sit and press that right arrow and they keep trying to go faster and faster. But if you do that, you're going to miss a lot of the little tips along the way. So if your question hasn't been answered about the double-sided tumbler, then I would suggest that you rewatch the video and do it in real-time speed. just because I do answer all of the questions on the double-sided video in this video, and I wanted to make sure of that so that there would be no questions, but I do know that I'm going to get a bunch of them. So get ready. If you're going to send me an email and ask me, you know, about this particular problem you're having, it's probably going to be addressed already in the video, and I'll probably just refer you back to rewatch it. So as far as the rotary setup, that's a whole different video. There are tons of problems. There's not so much problems with the X-Tool roller. They seem to work pretty well. The major problems that I see are with the off-brand ones and with the older ortur rollers. And doesn't quite make sense to me because they're just a stepper motor, you know, so I'm not quite sure. I think maybe they just use different size stepper motors, and, you know, whatever was the cheapest at the time, that could possibly be it. Whereas the X-Tool is more consistent. They use the same stepper motor every time. I don't really know. But any problems with the setup are easily resolved just by running that test for your millimeters per rotation. And once you dial in that millimeters per rotation, you know, everything's going to work out fine for you. So anyway, another long video today, but I really enjoyed making this video, and I hope I answered all of your questions. So as always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.